You ever come home thinking everything will be just the way you left it? Yeah, me too. But nothing was where it used to be. The house felt like a stranger. My son barely recognized me. And my wife, she was already gone, in more ways than one. There are things I found out that night that still keep me up. Some lies don't just break you, they change what you are. If you're watching this, stay with me. There's a truth here worth hearing. Make sure to like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We tell real stories, the kind you don't forget. My name is Nick Jensen, 34 years old, born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. I served 9 months overseas, mostly desert, mostly heat, and mostly silence broken by chaos. You learn a lot about silence out there. You learn to read the air before it shifts. The day I came home, I felt something I couldn't explain, the kind of stillness that doesn't feel peaceful, the kind that feels like a warning. I stepped off the plane expecting a crowd of 2. My son, Tyler, 8 years old, blue-eyed, obsessed with dinosaurs, running into my arms, and Candace, my wife, waiting just behind him, maybe with tears in her eyes. Instead, there was no one. Just the churn of strangers greeting other strangers, the occasional squeal of joy echoing in my chest like a reminder of what I didn't have. At first, I thought I messed up the time. Checked my phone. Nothing. No missed calls, no messages. I waited. I paced. Still, no one came. The drive home was quiet. Too quiet. My truck had been sitting in long-term parking, still dusty from the last time I saw it. The steering wheel felt colder than I remembered. The roads were familiar, but my hands were shaking. When I pulled up to the house, the front porch light was off. The curtains were drawn. One of the trash cans had tipped over and hadn't been picked up. The lawn looked longer than usual, wild in a way that said no one had cared for it in weeks, or maybe months. Still, I thought, maybe they had gone out. Maybe there was a surprise waiting inside. I knocked first. I don't know why. It was my house. But something in me needed to ask permission before entering. The door creaked open. The air inside smelled wrong, sour and stale, like rotting food and something else underneath it. The kind of smell that clings to the walls and hides behind furniture. The living room was a mess. Blankets on the floor, toys half broken, a shattered photo frame face down near the couch. I stepped over it and caught a glimpse of the glass. The picture inside had been torn. My face was missing. I called out, once, then again. No answer. Then I heard a sound, faint, from the hallway, wheeling, like plastic scraping wood. I turned the corner and froze. Tyler, sitting in a wheelchair, his legs in braces, one arm bruised yellow and purple up to the elbow. A thin scar ran across his temple. His eyes were wide, wet, and tired. Far too tired for a child his age. He didn't smile. He didn't move. He just stared. "Hey, buddy," I whispered, my voice caught in my throat. "It's me." His lips parted, like he was trying to say something. But then he looked past me, toward the front door, as if expecting someone else to walk in. I crouched beside him, gently placing a hand on the armrest. "Where's your mom?" Nothing. His breathing quickened. His hand gripped the wheel tightly. "Tyler, it's okay. I'm here. I'm home. You're safe now." He blinked once, then again, and finally whispered something so quiet I had to lean closer to hear it. "She said you were dead." I pulled back, stunned. "Who said that?" He looked down at his lap. "Mom." My heart pounded like gunfire. I tried to stay calm. I had trained for chaos, but nothing prepared me for this kind of war. "What happened to you?" I asked gently. That's when he started to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quiet, controlled sobs, the kind you only learn after months of hiding. He shook his head as if answering a question I hadn't asked. I stood up slowly, eyes scanning the house. Every corner felt darker now, every silence heavier. And deep in my gut, I knew. Something terrible had happened here. But it wasn't over yet. Not even close. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Tyler. He lay in his bed, stiff under a dinosaur blanket that had seen better days. I sat in the hallway just outside his door, back against the wall, listening. To him, breathing. To the silence of the house. To every creak of wood that might have meant someone was still there. Every 10 minutes or so, Tyler would whisper something. A name, a half-word, sometimes just a sound, like fragments of dreams bleeding into the dark. I wrote each one down in a notebook I found in the junk drawer. Dave. Truck. Closet. Don't tell. I waited until morning to ask him questions. I needed him calm, not scared. And I needed me calm, too. The kitchen was worse than I remembered. Dirty dishes stacked high, some with mold crawling up the sides. A baby monitor sat on the counter. Dusty, unplugged. That didn't make sense. Tyler hadn't needed one of those in years. I picked it up, flipped it over, and found a sticker from a pawn shop. He saw me looking and muttered, "She brought it back after." After what? He looked away and said nothing. I made him pancakes. He barely touched them. I didn't push. Instead, I took a walk through the house. Slowly, like it wasn't mine. In the hallway upstairs, I found the closet door slightly ajar. Inside was a pile of blankets and a plastic flashlight with dead batteries. A few drawings were taped to the inside wall. Dinosaurs again. But they were different this time. Darker. One had red scribbles where the legs should have been. Underneath the drawings was a faint line of marker. "He can't find me here." I shut the door and stood there a moment. Who the hell was he? Candace's side of the closet was empty. No clothes, no shoes. The nightstand drawers had been dumped out. A mirror in the bathroom was cracked down the middle. I found a bottle of foundation smeared with dried blood. And still, no note. No explanation. At noon, I sat beside Tyler again. He was on the couch watching cartoons with the sound off. "Ty," I said carefully, "I need to know what happened." He hesitated, eyes flicking to the door. Then he whispered, "He pushed me." I nodded, let him take his time. Down the stairs, he said I was in the way. His voice cracked on the word stairs. Then Mom told me not to tell anyone. She said you wouldn't come back anyway. I felt my hands curl into fists without thinking. I let out a slow breath. Did she see him do it? He nodded. She yelled at him. But then she stopped. She said it was an accident. Even when he laughed. He laughed? Another nod. This one slower. I needed names, proof, records. But more than anything, I needed to understand how long this had been going on. "What's his name?" I asked. "Dave." The way he said it, flat, like something cold in his mouth, told me everything I needed to know. "And the truck?" I asked. "You said truck last night." He turned away. Tears welled up, but he blinked them back. "I ran away once. He found me, in the driveway. I thought I could make it to the neighbors. He stopped. You don't have to say it," I said quickly. "I believe you." But I already knew what he meant. I'd seen the damage to the wheelchair's wheels, the uneven wear, the rust on the side, and I had seen the bruises. He had been run over. Not an accident. A warning. Candace knew. And she stayed. Something cold settled in my chest. But it didn't burn. It didn't scream. It focused. I opened the hallway closet, pulled out my old army footlocker, and unlocked it. Inside, a few files, a handheld camera, and a flash drive of archived recon footage I never deleted out of habit. Beside it was my tablet, with an old copy of surveillance software I used overseas. I dusted it off, plugged it in. I was done waiting for the truth to reveal itself. I was going to collect it. For the first time in a long time, I slipped back into the rhythm I knew from war. A rhythm of observation, planning, execution. I didn't shout. I didn't rage. I watched. I listened. and I started recording everything. I bought 4 motion-triggered security cameras that same afternoon, 2 for the interior, 2 outside. I didn't want Tyler to know, so I installed them while he napped, tucking the little black lenses behind books in air vents under eaves. They fed directly to my tablet. The house was no longer just my home. It was evidence. I wasn't sure what I'd catch, but I had a feeling the past hadn't completely left. Something told me Candace hadn't either. That night, I went through Tyler's school documents, the ones that hadn't been thrown away. In a torn folder, I found an unfiled disciplinary report. A teacher had expressed concern about bruises. Tyler said he fell. The school called Candace. She never responded. There was a second note, handwritten, stapled to the back. This is the 3rd time. But there was no signature. The more I dug, the more questions surfaced. Tyler had been to the hospital twice in the last 6 months. Once for a broken wrist. Once for a concussion. Yet there were no follow-up appointments scheduled. I called the clinic. They said his mother requested the records be sealed, citing custody conflict. I wasn't even listed as his emergency contact. I stayed up until 4 a.m., piecing together the timeline. Scribbles, hospital receipts, gas station surveillance timestamps, Tyler's therapy notes half-smeared in crayon. I made a chart on the wall. Dates, injuries, locations, who was home, who wasn't. Patterns started to appear. There was always a gap between the injury and the lie. Always Candace in the middle. At sunrise, I took a walk around the block, just to breathe, just to feel something normal. That's when I noticed the neighbor across the street, an older woman in a pink robe, watering a plastic plant. She watched me, not like she was curious, like she knew. I crossed over. "Ma'am," I said gently, "sorry to bother you. I'm Nick Jensen, Tyler's dad." Her eyes softened immediately. "Oh," she said, "you're alive." Something in me froze. "Excuse me?" She hesitated. "Your wife. She told us you were killed in an ambush." "When?" "Months ago, right after the sirens." "What sirens?" She looked down. "The night the little one screamed." The image hit me like a fist. My son, crying out in the dark, and me, thousands of miles away, unable to hear it. I steadied my voice. "Did you ever see the man she was with? Tall, tattooed arms, always in that old pickup truck with the blue tarp." She paused. "I saw him hit your boy once." I swallowed. "You saw it?" "I called the police," she whispered. "They came. But Candace answered the door. I think she said it was a misunderstanding." I clenched my jaw. "Do you remember the date?" She nodded. I wrote it down. Back home, I synced the date with Tyler's injury records. That was the same week he was treated for a fall. The timing was exact. It was a pattern of abuse, documented and ignored. I had enough for a report, maybe even an investigation. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Later that evening, I reviewed the footage from the new cameras. Most of it was silent, just the house breathing, the air shifting. But at 3:42 a.m., I caught a shadow. Someone on the back porch. The door didn't open, but the figure leaned close to the window. Too close. A hand touched the glass. Then it was gone. The next morning, one of the cameras had been disabled. Someone had come back, and they knew exactly where to look. The morning after the shadow appeared, I didn't wake Tyler. I sat on the porch with my coffee, watching the yard like a soldier on watch. Every sound made me tense, the hum of a neighbor's car, the rustle of a tree. My instinct said he'd come back. Not out of bravery, but arrogance. Abusers think they're untouchable. But I had more than instinct now. I had footage, a timeline, names, witness statements. I had truth. I just needed to aim it. I drove to the local sheriff's office with a folder so thick it barely closed. Every page was dated, cross-referenced, backed by records, medical reports, school warnings, witness notes, footage of Dave lurking at the back door at 3:42 a.m. The woman at the front desk flipped through it in silence. When she reached the page showing photos of Tyler's injuries beside the ER report, her face changed. "Wait here," she said. 30 minutes later, a detective walked in. He didn't ask for explanations, just said, "Let's talk." By noon, a warrant was issued. By evening, Dave Holloway was in handcuffs, arrested in the same blue pickup with the same dent in the front bumper. Turns out he'd been arrested before. Assault, DUI, 2 restraining orders, none of which Candace had ever disclosed. Candace was harder to find. She'd disappeared 3 states away, using a different last name. But I didn't have to chase her. The truth was already chasing her. A few weeks later, I was in court. Tyler sat beside me, smaller than he should have looked in that oversized jacket, legs motionless in his braces. But his eyes were steady. He asked to speak. I tried to stop him, but he told me, "I want to be the one who says it." The courtroom fell into a hush as he was helped up to the stand. He didn't cry. He didn't shake. He told the truth about the stairs, the truck, the lies, about waiting in the closet for someone who never came, and then, finally, about me. He said, "My dad came back. He came back even though she said he was dead, and when he came back, I wasn't scared anymore." Candace sat frozen, her face unreadable. The judge's decision didn't take long. Full custody awarded to me. Supervised visitation only for her. The courtroom cleared, but I stayed in my seat for a while. Tyler squeezed my hand. It was over, or at least the worst part was. A month passed. We moved to a new place, somewhere with trees and a quiet school at the end of the block. Tyler got a dog, a scrappy mutt named Ranger who slept at the foot of his bed and barked if someone walked too close to the house. He started drawing again. Dinosaurs, of course, but now they were smiling, running, flying. One morning, I found a letter in the mailbox. No return address. It was from Candace. A messy, scribbled apology. She said she didn't recognize herself anymore. Said Dave made her someone else. Said she missed her son. I showed Tyler, asked what he wanted to do. He stared at the paper for a long time, then wrote something of his own on the back and handed it to me without a word. "You left when I needed you most. You said he'd stop, but he didn't. I waited, and you didn't come. Now I have someone who did." He didn't want to send it. Said writing it was enough. So we burned the letter together, standing outside under a quiet Arizona sky. That night, I tucked him in. He looked up at me and asked, "You're not leaving again, right?" I brushed the hair from his forehead. "Never," I said, and I meant it. There were still nightmares. Still doctor visits. Still days when he flinched at sounds that shouldn't have scared him. But there were also first smiles. First dreams again. First steps, unsteady, painful, but steps. And above all else, there was safety. Not because the world had changed, but because I had come back, and I stayed. And no one would ever hurt my son again. Not while I was breathing. Not ever.